Welcome to the Fleet Geeks podcast. We're here to help develop fleet and transport professionals. Do you want to progress and develop your skills and knowledge? We promise to bring lively conversation and debate around interesting issues and keep you bang up to date with changes in our awesome industry. The Fleet Geeks are a community of professionals, and if you enjoy the podcast, why not join the discussion for free in the Fleet Geek community over on Facebook.
Hi, it's Pete from Flagship Partners. We're really proud to sponsor the Fleet Geeks podcast. Flagship Partners offer a range of consultancy and training services to ensure that our customers remain compliant and have the best possible knowledge to be able to fulfill their work. If you're interested in support with any of our safety, HR or compliance services, or you want to train to be a transport manager or need driver CPC training, give us a call today. And we are recording. The dogs have just started fighting as well, so you're going to hear them growling in the background. You might hear me muting myself, Joe, whilst you're talking.
No, that's fair enough.
So, can you hear them?
I can hear them. They're on.
Shut up!
Just put the title.
I know, right? I was going to say Fleet Geeks, Pete and Jamie, and two chihuahuas fighting over a ball. We may have to re-record this. Let's see how it goes.
We'll end
up as an outtake. Yeah. Right. I'm going to ask you, Jamie, how to write a risk assessment for fleet operators. I'm going to put myself on mute. Go for it.
Okay. So the first step is to identify the hazards. So the hazard is something with the potential to cause harm. So to identify the hazards, and I think in our industry, there's so many hazards. Just picking one risk assessment of driving, even there's so many hazards that you need to look and assess. Secondly, decide who might be harmed and how they might be harmed. Once again, in our industry, there's so many people, isn't there? In our industry, there might be warehouse operatives, drivers, even office staff. You know, everybody. The public, really important. Yeah, and so many ways they may be harmed as well. Thirdly, evaluate them risks and take action to prevent them. So yeah, once you've documented it and worked out all the risks or the hazards.
Did you just say documented? I think you just said documented.
I think the dog saved me by growling at the same time.
Sorry, mate. I was there. I was there listening.
Too quick for me. Yeah, and it's important that you record your findings. Make sure it's documented. You've got it in that time, and obviously review them as well afterwards. Always make sure they're reviewed. And I used to do this, and I still do this. Depends on how severe the risk might be. If it's a real low risk thing, it may be okay to assess it every 3 years even. But if it's quite a risky situation you found, it might have to be evaluated every 6 months or even a year. And obviously, if there's been an incident, always evaluate your risk assessments if there's been an incident as well. I think that's quite important.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think if you say you're going to review it annually, make sure you review it bloody annually.
Yeah,
if you
definitely.
say it 3 yearly, then review it 3 yearly. It could be then reevaluated if there's a change to the business, for example.
Yeah, definitely. It's really important to identify all your hazards as well. You know, and just reviewing your own risk assessment. Don't just review the risk assessment. Review the operation. There may be new practices that you're unaware of, or you've overlooked that need assessing as well. So it's quite important not just to go through your documents, actually go out into the workplace and make sure you assess all your risks.
I think my biggest tip for people listening is that people focus too heavily on what box something should fall into, red, amber, or green, or how they, if they're using like a quantified risk assessment, how they number the likelihood against the level of consequence, for example. But actually, the most important part of the risk assessment, the really, really important part, is the controls. It's about how you're going to control risk. So putting in, and a lot of the time people overlook some of the controls they've got. Controls include PPE, they include training, they include barriers, they include signage. All of that stuff that people take for granted, they are controls too. But particularly when speaking to their team and consulting their team when creating a risk assessment, I think is vital. But also, like I say, the list of controls and making sure, if you say there's a control in place, making sure it's bloody in place, right?
Yeah, similarly, if you put a time limit on putting a control in place as well, make sure you hit these time limits or explain to people why they've not been hit, and just make sure that everyone's aware of the situation, because things can be tricky to fix sometimes, can't they? I don't know, I can't think of a specific example, but things can be quite tricky. Might take a bit longer than expected. So just make sure you communicate that with the team as well.
Definitely.
Like you say, definitely involve the team, because they're the people that see these risks, or these hazards, every day.
Definitely. And the dogs are really funny, because every time I go on mute, they're quiet, and then when I turn myself off mute, they're coming back on again. But yeah, I think the other thing is that I really wanted to sort of pick up on was when you set the controls, make sure that you speak to people and make sure you get out on site. Too many people use templated risk assessments that aren't applicable to their business and aren't the way that work's being done in their business. So it's so important to get out, speak to the people at the sharp end, and to properly control the risk. And then also, risk assessments just gather dust in an office somewhere and aren't ever shared with the people that matter.
No,
I think that's the other thing. Like, it's so important to ensure that the actual contents and the controls of the risk assessment are shared, so that people understand why they have to do these crazy health and safety things that are taking over.
I must admit, I think the perception has changed the last 10 years. People appreciate the risk assessment side of things more. They appreciate why it's done. I think 10 years ago that's what you heard, wasn't it? Health and safety, overkill. But actually, when you speak to people nowadays, people actually do appreciate that these things have been assessed and looked at.
Definitely, and I'll take that opportunity. Definitely take the opportunity whilst the dogs are quiet, just for a moment, to top and tail that. I hope this Fifth Wheel podcast has been useful. We're calling the short ones the Fifth Wheel. I think that's quite a good name. And yeah, enjoy. Catch you later. Cheers, Jay.
Cheers, Pete.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please share with your friends and colleagues too. Join us for free on Facebook with the Fleet Geeks community for transport and fleet managers. Fleet Geeks offers ongoing professional development, networking and mentoring too. So get in touch with me, Pete Rushmer, on any social media platform to find out more.